using underwear as outerwear. We go to the next slide. And these are the haircuts, so you can see very, very geometric, very sleek. The colourways of black and red are very much part of this look. We go to the next slide. And a little bit of sort of Frida Kahlo or Dolce & Gabbana sort of influences with the roses in the hair. I think Sassoon hair is so pure and so clean that it sort of lends itself slightly to accessorising. So that's the first look, Morocco. Then we move on to street urchins or gutter snipes or mudlarks as they were known. So moving back to London, sort of Victorian Edwardian London. And this, I suppose, in a way, if we go to the next slide, looks at these kind of beautiful young kids that lived on the streets, lived by their wits. But in a fashion sense, it was almost also about very early John Galliano was kind of very inspired by the return of John Galliano to the Martin Margiela brand. And obviously Martin Margiela is very interested, the brand is very interested in the idea of recycling of objet trouvé. So that kind of forms the basis of the look. And I kind of imagine that it would be cool to have these kind of little gutter snipes, as we call them, kind of having these funny little choppy, scruffy, boyish haircuts, again for boys and for girls. We go to the next slide. So this is how we've kind of illustrated that. So kind of lots of weird different fabrics, very much into the use of ticking, which is an old mattress fabric, very cheap, old-fashioned fabric we thought would be quite good to bring into the collection. We go to the next slide. And then the look, the hair looks, are much more, I would say they're much more layered, there's much more of a sense of disconnected paneling going on. As you've heard, the colours are much sort of earthier, more natural for this. We go to the next slide. And then, yeah, this kind of whole idea, the wheat on the right-hand side of the hair was a sort of homage to a look that René Gelston, the former creative director of Sassoon, did when he did Bird's Nest hair. So we thought we'd reintroduce that as well. We thought that would be quite fun. So you've got the kind of contrast. You've got Morocco 30s, Moroccan decadence, then you've got the street urchin, gutter snipes, sort of in Victorian London. And for the final one, we thought we'd kind of reintroduce this idea of something slightly more spiritual, because I think there is this kind of new hippie sort of thing around, certainly with young people. I know my children are in, so I think it's all a big bruise, but there you go. So yeah, so much purer. If we go to the next slide. So the idea was Paris just after the French Revolution, when the sort of aristocracy obviously didn't want to look like aristocrats because they'd have their head cut off by the guillotine. So they adopted this kind of almost Roman or Grecian look, very kind of pure muslin outfits, very simple. And apparently they used to dampen their outfits to go out with, so they clung to the body in a much more alluring way. We go to the next slide. This is the Forgotten Innocent collection by John Galliano in the early 80s, which is also informing part of the collection, part of this look. And then the next slide is a beautiful statue that I came across when researching the collection that I just thought was so beautiful because it's made of marble, but it looks, you know, the veil is so incredible to look at. Go to the next slide. So the makeup, you'll notice when the models take to the stage, is much more sort of spiritually inspired and uses these kind of insignias on the forehead. And then pure white clothing and pure white hair, or nearly pure white hair anyway. Go to the next slide. So beautiful haircut from Alex on Felicity. And then the next slide. So kind of crops for girls, mid-length hair as well. And the next slide, that's it all together. Hope you like it.
Very lovely. Thank you, Mark, for giving us that insight into the whole collection at the moment. So, Bruce, where would you take this inspiration now for the haircut that you're doing? Sort of what areas did you